from Nashville, Tennessee. It's time for another episode of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow, where all things related to your safety and security are discussed, detailed, and delivered to you. You may leave with a tip that saves you money or a tactic that saves your life. So here are your hosts, owner and founder of Defend Systems, Brink Fiddler, and owner and operator of Herring Technology, Tom Herring.
Hey guys, welcome to this edition of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow. I'm your co-host, Brink Fiddler, owner and founder of Defend Systems. With us, me always, is my co-host and founder of said podcast, Tom Herring, operator and owner of Herring Technology. So, we're coming up on a year off from this podcast, and we took a hiatus, to say the least, to focus on some other things, and a lot can happen in a year. But our intent is to continue with this, maybe not with the frequency we had in the past, but we do enjoy doing this and exploring things and educating people on not just events, but stuff in the safety and security world, right? I mean, if there's ever been a time in this country, or really in the world, I would say, Tom, I don't know what you think, but where safety and security is top of mind, like I mean, we probably said this a year ago, and it has stayed, right? Or I guess it's, in my mind, I would think it's probably on more people's minds, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Have you, I thought the world was a much better place in the past year. It was so safe. We didn't have anything to do. Nothing's going on. I mean, isn't that what we're seeing?
Let's go, Brandon.
Yeah. There we go. That's, seems to be a nice phrase at the NASCAR race. So.
Right.
So, anyway, but yeah, in the past year, there's been quite a bit. The past week, there's been quite a bit. So, for you and for I, both in private security, it's been busy, which means it's good for us, but somebody's having a bad day.
But bad for society. I say that all the time. I mean, and when I teach and do my active shooter stuff, I was just doing it yesterday, and I start off with how sad is it, how terrible is it that I can have a company that does what I do for a living? I mean, that's insane to me, right? Like that that I make a living training people on how to deal with active shooters and violence in the workplace. Like that's how volatile this world is, or especially this country. Like, holy crap, and you make your living keeping people secure. Security's always a thing, right? It's always been a thing, always. Like it's far back as we know in history, right, that safety and security of human beings has always been an issue, right, because there's evil in the world and there's dangerous stuff in the world and all that, and you obviously make your living protecting people and doing it really well, and I similarly make my living helping people protect themselves, basically, and, you know, whether or not we do that well or not, I don't know. My clients seem to say yes, but we'll see as business continues to grow, and it's a thing everywhere, right? But, you know, I guess from a business standpoint for you, what business category? I mean, you're a business to business guy, right? Like you typically, I mean, you have some residential, but overall, your strategy, your big thing is business to business, right? So what business sector would you say, in your opinion, needs to or does spend the most time, effort, and energy on security?
It's hard to say because it's so random. You know, we do a lot of warehousing, you know, and so that's a lot of inventory that's coming, going. It's a lot of, you know, hiring going on, so a lot of inside collusion type burglaries and, you know, employee violence. It's hard to say. You know, everybody wants to know what vertical is the most, and right now it's where there's humans, right, and where there's inventory. It is a society problem. You know, I mean, as much as we don't want to say that or do it, it is what it is, and so it's across every vertical. I mean, it's education, it's in healthcare, you know, from emergency rooms to, you know, the drugs that are stored there. It's retail. You know, used to retail was not that big. as far as you had a little shoplifting here and there.
Sure.
But the world has changed. And I don't mean it from the world's a worse place, that there's more bad people, but there's less accountability to when they get caught, that has changed the whole scope of things.
Sure.
When you're watching people walk into retail outlets, stores, box stores, they're loading up carts and walking out. They're not trying to shoplift. They're not hiding it.
Right.
They're walking out and daring someone to stop them.
Yep.
And they don't.
Yep.
And then it goes on the news, and it's like, well, hey, if he can do it, why can't I? The old phrase, crime doesn't pay. Bull crap, it doesn't pay. It pays. I mean, that's why there's so much of it.
Well, especially if there's no fear of consequence, and that's where we are, right? There is no fear of consequence on, well, a lot. We can take Nashville as a good example. Violent crime in Nashville's through the roof. Like, it's through the roof, and you can talk all day about opinions as to why and all that, and I'll give you my opinion, being prior law enforcement in this town and understanding the dynamics of how things work. If the criminals in Middle Tennessee no longer fear significant prosecution, then we demonize the police and make all law enforcement basically run for the hills. Like, I mean, the department is down so many officers, it's ridiculous, right? So you're short-staffed, and you've got a prosecutor's office who has way different policies than the prior prosecutor as far as how stringent and how strict they are on prosecuting crimes and on, bail and all that other stuff. Well, it's just that it's a vicious cycle that continues to spiral out of control, and the police department can't get their hands around it. After they do, what happens next in the court system doesn't handle itself and doesn't deter people, well, then what are the cops doing? I mean, let me ask you this. Your business is right in the heart of Nashville, and you live in Nashville, Davidson County. When is the last time you saw a Metro police officer on a traffic stop?
That would be hard to even say. Matter of fact, in the past month, I can tell you how many wrecks I've been by that there's no one there yet. And let's make something real. We're not bashing the police for that. That's not their fault.
No.
That's 100%. They're doing absolutely everything they can possible with the people they have. And, when they do show up, they're good ones. We're not, I want to make sure we're very clear that we're not downing the police on this. This is, it goes to the Metro Council here in Davidson County, who will not, right now there's a big debate over license plate recognition. Yep. And it keeps getting tabled and pushed. Well, those are huge tools for what we're seeing happening, from the West Coast to here regarding, the mob smash and grabs. Yep. It's pretty evident criminals are doing, the same people are creating multiple crimes. Right. And that would help in that. We know when they're in the area. We know what's going on. If they're wanted right now, they're not, it helps us find them. And, the whole argument over it is, privacy issues. Right. Well, it's a public license plate on a public street. Yep.
And and I actually, there was an interview, I think it was yesterday, within the last few days on talk radio, with a captain from Mount Juliet Police Department talking about their system and talking about how Metro's not, moving for it yet. And it's basically, you like to use this word a lot, or these words a lot, and I couldn't agree more. That system alone would be a ridiculous force multiplier, right? Because you would immediately, the captain yesterday was talking about, they had an incident where I think it was a domestic, where the guy literally beat this girl up and pushed her out of a moving car. Okay, so they had his tag and were able to upload it in the system. And within 20 minutes, when he re-entered their jurisdiction, they had him in custody, right? I mean, like, how is that not? I mean, that took no cops except to pull him over and take him into custody. Not we take the LPR out of it. You've got an entire department that's not on a call looking for this truck. not doing anything else, looking for this one truck. So an LPR could fix that. Now, one of the things he brought up, and one of the things that is of concern to about a third of the council, is my understanding here in Nashville, is the privacy issue, because they do not want the police to be able to type in their tag and figure out everywhere they've been. And that's what the council think, or some of the council members think, that the cops have nothing better to do than try and keep up with council members, right? But there's an audit trail for that. There's a system, a case number is assigned. I mean, there is no just typing in a number and nobody knows who did it, right? I mean, there's a log and there's all sorts of fail-safes in place to protect the privacy of people. But back to your point, you're on a public road. What's the difference in an LPR grabbing your tag or me following you? I can follow you anywhere I want to, right? In
Absolutely.
a car, it's called surveillance. I used to do it for a living. So people just get wrapped around the axle when it's electronic, thinking that it's more invasive. And it's really not more invasive. It is just a better tool for law enforcement to be a force multiplier. And holy crap, have we ever needed a force multiplier worse than now? No. Back to the point I was trying to make about traffic stops. Again, not obviously knocking the police. I have a nonprofit that supports the police, but they do not have the manpower to do hardly any proactive work on the patrol side of things, right? They are running call to call to call to call. Do they have proactive units? Yes. Do we have way fewer proactive units than we did 2 years ago? Yes. And reactive policing does not prevent crime. Proactive policing prevents crime. And we're in a spot where we can't have very much proactive policing. I mean, no. Go figure.
If 100% of your time is reacting to what calls are there, and you're not even completing those, what is going on? So, in the lack of that, whose responsibility does that go back on?
Well, how do you effectively recruit and maintain police officers in a time when we're starting to see the tide shift, thank God, but in a time where we villainize them, demonize them, prosecute them for shooting bad guys with guns in their hands? I mean, if we're doing all that, I mean, how are we possibly going to keep, not only recruit, hire, and retain police officers if they're, number one, worried about being prosecuted all the time, number two, don't have, I mean, if you're looking at becoming a police officer and you come to Nashville and they're 250 officers short or whatever, are you going to be jumping at the chance to go work there? No, I mean, right? No, because you're going to be shorthanded and not have backup, and so I don't know. I mean, I don't. It's a chicken or egg thing. I don't know how you fix it. But we got to get a lot of law enforcement support, and I think one thing we'd have to do is get tougher prosecutorial policies is really, I think, where it starts. That's just my opinion, but I've seen the results, and you can't argue with them.
Yeah, I mean, look at the cases that are out there right now. I mean, these aren't, you have a female police officer that's in court right now.
Yep.
For a shooting, and she thought she was pulling her taser. I mean, it was an accident, but let's be real. It's in the heat of the moment. It wasn't like she was pulling over somebody coming out of Sunday school and she accidentally used a gun instead of a taser.
Yeah. So imagine had he complied. Oh, he'd be alive had he just complied, right? Had he not fought the police, had he done what the police asked him to do, did he deserve to die? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. And the people that are saying that, she shot him on purpose or whatever just lost their mind. They haven't seen the video, or that's just what they want to believe. I mean, she yells taser and she says, "Oh my God, I just shot him. Oh my God." Like, she genuinely felt like it was her taser in her hand. And, that's one of the only problems with tasers is that they're very similar to a pistol. You pull the trigger the same way. You do a lot of things the same way. They don't really like you. Most jurisdictions don't like you wearing a taser on your non-dominant side. They want you still firing that with your dominant hand. Well, I mean, again, heat of the moment, things happen. Yes, was she there for 20 plus years? Yes, had she had training? Was it an accident? 1,000%. And I'm not saying that kid shouldn't be alive. He should.
Well, he would be alive if he had, back to your part, was in jail for what he had already done and was let out.
Right.
So that goes back to what you said on the prosecutorial part. he shouldn't have been out there to start with,
Nope.
and he would still be alive, and she wouldn't be going through living hell right now with a court case and what she's going through, just mentally and emotionally with herself. Back to, he had put a gun at a girl's head, choked her almost unconscious.
Yep.
Tried to steal money from her, but nope, he's out on the street.
Well, look at I don't know how you pronounce it, Waukesha, the terrorist attack where the guy mowed down the crowd, the Christmas parade.
He'd just come out of Sunday school as well. He'd been there. He had 5 stars for the week.
I don't know what Sunday school this is you speak of, but it's not like any Sunday school I'm aware of.
Well, if you listen to our society and government, these are all sweet little individuals that this crap happens to, and they're
That's
not.
right.
They're turds, and that's what we don't understand a lot of times.
They deserve another chance, Tom. That's what
I'm all for another chance, but I'm not for 42 of them.
Right. I mean, like, how many lives have been, number one, been lost, but number two, been altered forever because of that dude, when there's no, I mean, you look at his record, you look at the charges he had pending, all that. I mean, there's the fact that he was not in jail is ridiculous. But, when you have a far left lurch, right, like, especially, and that's what Soros figured out, and I don't know when, but we're starting to see the results of it, is they really went after the prosecutor's offices, right? That's what they started going after from a far left standpoint, is winning large jurisdiction DA's offices, because the amount of power and discretion that a district attorney has is vast, and you can literally alter society like that, right? We're seeing it.
And it has.
100%. You're going to tell me the police department all of a sudden, just decided to not do anything? Well, no, of course not. What changed? Look at what changed. It's like every time you investigate a case, or I used to investigate a case, what are we looking for, right? Changes. Like, what is different about this one in particular, right? Well, you look at all this stuff, what changed in all these jurisdictions? I mean, when I got here today, there was a little ticker across the bottom of the news screen saying that the DA, I think it was in Philly, downplays rising crime despite spike in murders, and that's what they're all doing.
12 cities, 12 large cities in the U.S. announced yesterday record homicides. 12 cities.
Yeah, I don't know where Nashville is. I can tell you, violent crime is through the roof here. I don't know where we sit comparatively speaking, but and I'm afraid what's going to happen to Nashville specifically. And I mean, I'm concerned about all these cities, don't get me wrong, but this is our hometown, right? And this is where we do business and raise families. What drives Nashville, right? It's the tourism, right? And if we become a lawless, dangerous city, we're going to lose that, and that's going to be a problem. And it starts with the prosecutorial philosophy of the local jurisdiction. That's where it starts. That's what lays the framework for everything that comes thereafter. And we obviously have a guy in there that sees things differently, and I think we're seeing the results.
Are you guys seeing anything with as you see the rising tide of crime and things that are kind of anti-police? Aren't you seeing just the opposite as well, though, with people who support the police that are coming out of the woodwork? The flag being flown, and I mean, is there a nonprofit that can be formed to help them with their legal defenses and such?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, I think any nonprofit that supports law enforcement could do that. I mean, obviously we have, and I don't think I've ever talked about it on this show. I don't know if I have or not, but Back the Blue Tennessee is a nonprofit specifically that I founded to support law enforcement. And the mission is to support advanced training and equipment to better equip officers to do their job and keep society safe. I mean, like, that's what we should be focused on. I mean, we count on them. And like we talked about before, and it's been a while, but these people saying defund the police and all that stuff, they don't know what they're in for. I mean, like, that there's a certain segment of society, and I would say most of it leans more to the right, middle to the right, that is just going to handle things themselves. I mean, like, they don't really know. They do know what they're doing. They if there's continued lawlessness and there's continued division and there's continued hatred, then there's continued control. And that's really what they're after, right, is control. And so if they can keep us divided, but I, to your point, Jim, yes, I think there's a lot of people getting more vocal about it. I think a lot of people, especially last year in riot season, were silenced because they were fear of retribution, right? I saw a great meme the other day. It was Will Ferrell, and he was yelling, "I can't believe it's riot season already. I still have my COVID decorations up." You know, but that's the point, right? Like that's both those things are being utilized for control. But I don't know that law enforcement feels the love.
No, it's probably going to take a little bit of a tide swell to come back. But I'm looking at some of the recent news just at a random search that I put in here. Defund the police movement as a search term. 9 days ago, defund the police movement is now dead in Oakland.
It's not all that's dead in Oakland. But
yeah, no, that's part of the reason why I guess it's dead.
Oh, imagine that.
Despite the calls to defund, Capital Region police departments are spending more than ever. That's 13 days ago. So, I mean, the good news is that there's a little bit of a silver lining in the scenario. So,
well, the funny thing is out on the left coast, as I like to say, where a lot of these problems are going on, and they were the ones who first were fighting license plate recognition. They were fighting facial recognition. They were, every bit of it. Well, guess what? When the chickens come home to roost and they're knocking out their windows and grabbing everything at masses, guess who now is approving all of it and bringing it back in because they know that's a way to stop it. Mm-hmm. It's, when you see the results of what you believe when it actually hurts, your opinion's a little bit different, I guess.
Well, that goes back to being reactive, though, right? I mean, like that's what they're doing. They're being reactive, right? They were given the opportunity to be proactive, right? I mean, and you give clients the opportunity to be proactive all the time, right? And all these places, Metro, to be included with this LPR stuff, have been given the opportunity over and over and over and over again to be proactive. What's it going to take? Being reactive does not help. I mean, that just does not help solve the problem. But we do always say in law enforcement a lot of times, and this is really sad, but a lot of times it takes a tragedy to enact change, to change a tactic, to approve whatever. And it was Sandy Hook that finally got Metro Police Department leadership to approve assault rifles for Metro Police, right? Or rifles, I should say, right? Because whatever. But that was the catalyst. That was the catalyst that the chief said, okay, we got to have rifles. Like, that's 2000. Well, that was 2013. I mean, 2012 when it happened, but it was 2013 when they started talking about rifles because of Sandy Hook. Well, you talk about a tragedy. I can't think of much more tragic than a bunch of 6-year-olds getting mowed down. But if that's what we're going to continue to do, well, that's the definition of insanity, right? It's continuing to do the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And then when they finally come back around and say, okay, we're going to do it now, well, great. All these people's lives that have changed forever because you didn't do it before, right? How many people are out of business because of smash and grabs? How many people have lost loved ones who've been killed, right? Or whatever. I don't know. I don't know the answer, but it's because they didn't want to be proactive. They wanted to be reactive, and that's a problem.
Well, I think part of it, we were a naive society. We were very fortunate for many, many, many years of, well, let's go all the way back. You had people in the time that took care of their own. You would call the police to come write up a report once it was over.
Sure. Pick up the body.
Yeah, correct. And fill out the paperwork and see where it goes. We'll go through a time where, people got used to our police being too good. Literally, they were able to stop a lot, and people, that's what they depended on. No longer did they have to protect themselves. You just call the police, and thank goodness there wasn't enough crime then, and they were able to handle that.
Yep.
People got used to not taking care of themselves. We're stupid as a society.
Amen, brother.
I mean, and I'm saying all of us.
Sure.
If you do not make a conscious effort, I mean, especially now with Christmas, just go sit in a Walmart parking lot and watch people. They're not paying attention to anything.
Their phone.
Phone. They'll walk out in front of a car on their phone, walk into the buggy cart, which I've done myself, but that's okay. But, people are now having to become more self-aware of what's going on. They're having to think, how do I protect my business? There's a bar owner today that was on Fox News in Portland. His business was robbed 3 times in November.
What?
Not last year.
November.
Is that any time other than that? Just November?
Well, I mean, prior, I have no idea. But there's no response from the police because there's too many higher alert calls that are out there.
It's not a property crime, right?
And his whole thing is, I now have to hire private security to protect my business.
Yep.
And we're seeing that. I mean, we're getting calls more and more and more and more, just like you are for training, more and more and more. It's sad.
Very.
But it's being responsible as well. And like you said, being proactive is much better than being reactive to it, because we see that all the time. I couldn't tell you how many times we put quotes out and they sit for years.
Sure, until something happens.
Yeah. A lot of places we quote once a year. It's just kind of an annual thing we do for the same
fun.
business until something happens. And then they call and it's an emergency and we have to run out, and they overspend then.
Sure.
To where whatever happened to them, it could have been avoided at half the cost. And they're overreacting and overprotecting at this point. We love ones that plan ahead. We had one here in town, Smile Direct, that had a shooting. Everything worked out.
Yep.
Systems
worked.
Yeah. Guards were shot, but the employees were safe. It was an employee violence thing.
Yep.
And
that guy never made it to the building.
Nope, he did not make it in.
So,
and he
that's a win.
is where he should be at this point.
No longer with us.
But systems worked. We'd worked with them. They'd worked with other security companies. They were very active in who they, hired to look out for that. So credit to them.
Yeah, amen.
That's.
But every organization is not like that, and society, unfortunately, is not like that. What happens is, anytime historically, if you want to go back and look, we have a huge crime problem where New York City or whatever, and we bring in a mayor and a prosecutor that says, okay, we're going to get this under control. And they turn the cops loose and say, get this under control. We will support you 1,000%, obviously, as long as you're following the law, but we will support you 1,000%. We will prosecute the daylights out of these people, and the gloves are off. Go handle your business. And when they do that, what happens? It doesn't take long. It does not take long to get it under control. What takes a long time is to get it back under control from that point if we do not have everybody on board. And right now we don't have everybody on board. We have several people. You got poor Chief Drake, who is a phenomenal dude, right? I love John, and I'm so glad he's the chief here. But he is literally trying to hold the department together, right? And recruit enough people to keep this town as safe as it always has been, and at the same time retain the talent he needs by boosting morale. Did you guys notice that a lot of Metro officers now have facial hair? Have you noticed that? Mm-hmm. So that's a policy he changed. Not so much that he wanted everybody to have a beard. It's a morale thing, right? What can we do for the officers? Like, what's something little we can do to make them like, that's cool, right? That's exactly what that was all about. I mean, it has nothing to do with all of a sudden making your police force more effective because you have a beard now, even though you got your winter coat on now too.
Absolutely.
So again, without everybody being on the same team, we're going to continue to have problems. You can have the best chief of police and the best police department in the country, and if we don't have a good relationship and a strong prosecutorial effort, then the police department is basically rendered almost helpless. I mean, they can do what they can do, but not much more.
Yeah. They have to have tools. They have to have tools.
Yep.
And we're at a place in society now that there are tools there that would help them, as you said, force multipliers.
Yep.
When they're having trouble hiring people, then let's get them some tools where they can do their jobs more efficient.
100%.
And Metro Council needs to get off their freaking butts and get it passed where they can.
Yep.
They're not. I mean, they're not protecting innocent people.
No,
They're protecting guilty people.
that's right.
And that's the goal that where we're at now.
Well, and what's the saying that I don't have locks on my door to keep thieves out. I have my locks on my door to keep honest people honest, right? A thief's going to break in no matter if your door's locked or not. So to your point, that's exactly right. But, well, I think the lawlessness and stuff obviously was a catalyst to kind of fire this thing back up, but that's not going anywhere anytime soon, right? I mean, and we're starting to see it. Of course, you come out of a year of a pandemic, everything was whack. I mean, you became a temperature monitoring expert, I mean, and thank God, right? Because you helped how many of your clients, holy crap, get back to work. I mean, that's just kind of what we do. What all the morons on TV like to say, pivot. I hate that word, pivot, but that's what I'm sitting here saying it now. Like,
it's adapt.
That right, yeah, right. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. Right, that's what we've had to do. So, anyway, I think this is good a time as any to fire this thing back up. I think the topics are endless and whatever else, but I think that'll wrap up this edition of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for Safer Tomorrow. You can always reach out to us on Facebook. That's probably the easiest place to get us, or drop a comment on the YouTube channel. And thanks for listening.
I'm out.